Andy,
Hey, Rose.
thank you for taking some time to talk with me today about marketing. Since you are one of the founders and the CEO of GMB, you know a thing or two about marketing. So I wanted to take some time to talk with you and ask you about some of the questions that I'm getting from trainers, especially now that we're moving pretty much only online at the moment. And so trainers are having to build a new skill set around marketing themselves online, and learning how to sell themselves in a different way. Most of us are really familiar with how to do that more or less in an in-person gym environment, but going online is like a totally different ball game.
Yeah,
So I just wanted to ask you some questions and get some insight from you on how to do some of this work online. And I know that GMB is a very big company relative to many of our trainers. Like, our trainers have a very small version. But a lot of the things that I've learned from being part of GMB and watching how GMB does things have been really helpful in my own online business.
sure. If I could start
Yeah.
with, I have a couple of short disclaimers that I think are important to understand about advice. Everyone's heard, like, don't trust a bald barber. There's also a really important one, which is don't take business advice from someone who's not profitable. And I think that this is something that's really important when you are looking around the internet, as it were, trolling Reddit communities and seeing people with usernames like Bad Santa 69 telling you what kind of email list you should be building. You should take these with more than a grain of salt. Most of these people are not actually doing well. By contrast, I have generated like a really comfortable 8 figures of sales using a very specific set of tools and processes. And so that means that I am incredibly biased towards my own experience. And I have also never been a personal trainer. So I don't really know what that's like. I have talked to a lot of personal trainers, employed several of them, and I've been teaching martial arts for more than 30 years. But my experience is maybe a little different from what most of you guys have done, but I think that most of the fundamentals of marketing are pretty universal. Last disclaimer is that there's a solid 2 fingers of bourbon in this coffee. So anything I say that you don't like, you're more than welcome to just place that somewhere uncomfortable.
Awesome. Well, speaking to one of your disclaimers about getting information from people who aren't actually profitable online, we see a lot of people oh, I've helped this person and they launched their business and made 11 grand in the first day. And one thing that I don't like about a lot of those is that we don't know what the return rate is on sales for things like that. And one of the things
Right.
that's great about GMB is that our return rate is really low.
Right.
So we're
And
good at
there's a lot
marketing
of things
people.
you don't know about that equation. You don't know the return rate. You don't know the dropout rate. You also don't know when you hear that a certain number of sales were generated in one day. That's extremely misleading because you also don't know how many weeks of work were put into preparing for that sale to be opened.
Mm-hmm.
My very first product that I did with both Ryan and Jarla, with both of my partners, was actually a yoga program that we sold like 30 grand in about a weekend, but that was on the back of 3 months of work together, and they had been working for about 3 years on that thing. It doesn't tell you that a person has spent 6 years building an Instagram following and has never asked for anything and has built up like 250,000 followers, being extremely generous with information for several years. And the first time they sell anything, they make 10 figures. But man, that's actually a really poor return.
Right. So always question all the numbers that you see and claims that you read.
Question everything.
Awesome. Okay. So with all those disclaimers, thank you. But can you talk a little bit about how you go about identifying your audience and kind of building a brand for yourself? And we hear that a lot in marketing terminology of build your brand. And maybe you could talk a little bit about what this means, first of all.
Well, I mean, any advice that can be encapsulated in 3 words or a tweet is probably not actual advice most of the time. Building a brand is really, really hard. And, I say this as somebody whose company has a brand and we've been in business for 10 years, but I still don't think our brand is exceptionally strong. Um, it's really hard work to have a solid brand that people resonate with and that, authentically sells the things that you're trying to sell. So I think it's important to understand first, like, this is sometimes attributed to Steve Jobs, sometimes to various, business leaders, but the idea of brand is that I like to think of is it's what people say about you when you're not there. It's what people think about you when they see you and you're not there. Brand has nothing to do with what you want people to know about you. It has everything to do with the associations that people subconsciously have about you. And these associations are not built on a full understanding of your messaging and product line. These associations are not based on your education or what you did yesterday or all the people you've helped. These associations are usually based on somewhere under 3 seconds of contact with an image, a little bit of text, or maybe a short video that you've posted on social media. So your brand, just like first impressions in real life, is something that is formed near instantaneously from a very broad set of impressions that people get, and is then justified after the fact with logical reasoning. So it can be really hard to build one consciously, especially if that brand is not very close to who you naturally are. So a lot of things with brand that you'll get advice about will be, branding. And branding is a combination of visual elements, copywriting, and things like that. Branding is pretty quantifiable, and you can have very solid things. Like if you go to our GMB website, you'll see that we use the same 2 colors on everything. We use the same fonts everywhere. We use the same people in most of the pictures. We even crack the same corny jokes on page after page after page. And that's because that is the consistency. That's our branding that we try to keep very together, so that when people see what we do in the context of our website, of our YouTube channel, or our Facebook channel, Twitter, or when they see somebody using one of our programs elsewhere, then they're going to pretty clearly connect that branding with all the other things they've seen. But the brand itself, for us, it's changed many times as we've learned and changed what we promote. And so that is strictly in the mind of your prospect and your client. So it's really important to understand the difference between those things. You can control you can actually control both of them to an extent, but you'll find that most of the advice you hear on brand is actually about branding, and it doesn't speak to what is really important. And a lot of brand comes down to, in marketing, what we call positioning. And positioning is, it's how you place yourself and your services in sort of a box, right? Because most human cognition, most of the thinking that we do inside here happens in terms of association with things we already know. We're really bad at absorbing and being able to make use of completely novel information. So when we see something that we're unfamiliar with, something new, somebody that we don't know, right? We try to associate them with things that we already know. That's all of those associations that people pick up about you in that first impression. They're relating your clothes to other people they've seen wearing similar clothes, your haircut, your shoes, the way you stand. If you have a weird nervous tic with your right eye, it reminds them of their 2nd grade homeroom teacher that they really hated. And these are the things that we cannot really control all this stuff, but this is the way that the brain works. It associates with knowns. It associates unknowns with knowns. So your brand is a box that you get placed into when somebody sees you. It is a category. It is a thing that a person uses to understand you. And so there's 2 ways that you can be branded. One is you can be branded very deliberately by yourself. The other is you can be accidentally branded by the people that you want to be becoming your clients, right? And it's always going to be some blend of the 2, but the more you can shift that balance towards the deliberate brand that you're trying to create, the better, right? So you need to be conscious about your positioning and the way you present yourself. And it's all of these small cues, right? If you put a video on the Facebooks that is you wearing some athleisure clothes in on a turf floor with some kettlebells in the background and some posters up doing an exercise, it doesn't matter what the exercise is. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what you do or how many people you've helped. Someone casually scrolling through the Facebooks are going to see about 1.5 seconds of personal trainer. They have put you in a box. They have already positioned you. And you will almost never be able to outposition that first impression. So this is something that's really important. You have to be aware of everything you put in front of people and how that is feeding into their biases and the ways that they're going to position you in a box they're already familiar with. So if you're trying to build a brand, death is basically, you could define that as being in the same box with all the other people that your prospect is not choosing to give money to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you make the same choices as everyone else in your niche or area or market or whatever, you're going to be boxed into that same position. And so your brand is going to be one more personal trainer. Your brand is going to be, oh, one of those kettlebell guys or a mobility guy, or your brand is going to be, I don't know, is he friends with some of those FRC people, right? That's going to be your brand, whether you like it or not. So first you need to be thinking about how you position yourself contra all those other things. And the most important thing about brand is that you have to look for holes. You have to look for things that people are not already owning. Because if you try to brand yourself around something someone else has owned, the best you can be is number two. Like the famous, Avis commercial, we try harder because we're not Hertz, but that's really not a great position to be in. I mean, you can capture like 15% of the market or something if you're the best number two. But still, you don't want to just be that. You need to be looking for holes, things that other people aren't doing. You don't want to be one more person saying, hey, join my live Zoom training of a cardio blast workout tomorrow, right?
Right.
Everyone's doing that.
Right.
So you're just going to be dismissed. You need to play to your own strengths, and you want to try to line up those strengths with where other people are not doing things. And then just be very conscious of presenting yourself in a way that is somewhat unique. And you can contrive uniqueness, and you should try to contrive uniqueness in a way that feels pretty organic, which sounds contradictory, but it's important to be able to understand what is going to be your shtick. And if you're always doing workouts in a gym, wearing your Lululemon stuff, you're just going to look like everyone else is doing that. If you're always working out in the park with your phone on the ground with blades of grass sticking out around it, you're going to look like everyone else doing that. So how can you set up your presentation? How can you always be wearing, particular, you could be the guy that wears metal t-shirts. You could be the lady that's got a cute dog sitting next to her. You could be anything, but any little thing that stands out can be part of your brand in a positive way. And so I'm kind of being superficial with this because I think everyone, in terms of what they teach, has their own sort of unique spin on a lot of different things. But that goes into a little deeper part of branding, which is really where you get into what your story is. And this is more fundamental, but the idea of a good story is that basically you have yourself as kind of like the Obi-Wan Yoda character. Your client is kind of the hero of the story, and you have some sort of enemy that you're helping them beat, right? And you want to take them to like the promised land. Like you want to promise them some good result. And you build a story around that. Like, why do you teach the people you teach? Where do you come from? What makes you good at this? Who have you helped before? What will the world look like? What will be like over the rainbow when someone has worked with you? These parts of the story can help you sort of define what you really want your brand to be, and then you can choose the more superficial characteristics to support that.
Okay, so yeah, that's what I was going to say, because that the first stuff that you were talking about is a little like up here, right? If we don't know who like our audience is and who we really want to be working with and helping, and know that know the problem that we're solving for our audience and how we're helping them, it's really hard to put an image or a look to that.
Hmm.
Um, and I think trainers get stuck in this rut a lot where they haven't really thought about who their audience is necessarily, and they just put up kind of generic social media
Right.
posts. And
Yeah.
that's
So let's
not
talk
going to
about
get them.
audience.
Yeah, so let's talk about audience, because just kind of not talking to anybody or talking to everybody is not really going to get you the result that you want.
Yeah. So my friend Clay, who taught me a lot of marketing, he used to give this example of this biker bar in Minneapolis that he used to love going to. It's called Bulldogs. Um, and it was this place, it was a legit biker bar, but when the neighborhood started gentrifying, they put up all these other fancy clubs and stuff around, but Bulldogs actually became like the center of the neighborhood because it was the real authentic place. And even people that weren't bikers wanted to go there, right? You don't have to be a biker to be attracted to the authenticity of a real biker bar.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is something that's really important when you're looking at your audience. People want to go very broad because they're thinking, oh, I don't want to offend anyone who's not a biker with my leather jacket and my cheap beer. You know what? Lots of people like cheap beer. You don't have to be a biker for that. And nobody cares what jacket you're wearing. So you should be very specific with who you are trying to target. Audience is the main defining characteristic when you get into all of the actual execution of your marketing. I have an acquaintance who runs a very well-known paleo recipe and cookbook website. And they have a very large email list. And so they also use a very similar marketing tool set to what I use at GMB. Advertising, videos, email marketing, selling information products, and things like that, right? But their audience is mostly 50 to 65-year-old women. My audience is mostly 35 to 50-year-old men. So the way that we do things is going to be extremely different. And that doesn't mean that our entire audience is either one of these demographics.
Right. Okay. And so this is a key point. Talk about this, because I feel like trainers are worried that means, oh, well, that's the only people I'm going to be working with. That's not true.
No, 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 no.
Here's me
No,
as an
no,
example.
no, 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 right? So here's Rose, who is not a 40-year-old father of two at all. And she actually thinks that what we do is pretty cool, to the degree that she has invested years of her life in becoming very good at it and representing our company. So that's a very good example. What happens is not that we specialize in men. That couldn't be further from the truth, because very little of what we do is specific to a particular physiology or to a specific kind of physique type goal. If you're teaching physique, then you might need to really message towards like tone your thighs versus pump up your shoulders. I don't know. I don't really swim in those circles. But what happens is that when you show that you're very good at some things, people that are not your specific market will just be drawn to your quality. And that's what happens. We have never said that we have actually said this, but we never went out of our way to promote the idea that we could help clients in their 70s recover range of motion and improve their mobility and be able to get walking and moving again, right? But we have done so. What we did do is we promoted the fact that one of our founders is a very skilled and experienced physical therapist who has worked with, like 10,000 people manually and has a lot of experience, especially with like back pain and post-traumatic recovery. And when we expand on that experience and talk about our depth of knowledge there, then the people that have different problems that can be solved by that are attracted by that. So when you're talking about audience, you're not choosing to only serve one group. You're choosing to speak primarily to one group, right? It doesn't exclude. You don't need to exclude unless you have a specific reason to exclude people, right? you can play the exclusion card if you want to, and you can be like, so the obvious one is whiners, and if you're lazy, don't come here. We're gonna kick your ass, right? Like that's pretty tired, but it still works for a certain type of person, right?
Hmm.
Um, we, in my company, we tend to we don't do it very hard, but we do tend to exclude people whose main goal is physique improvement, because we're just not geared towards that, right?
Right. Right.
But some people will still buy our stuff for that, and I feel bad for them, because instead of what they wanted, they're actually just getting stronger and better at doing stuff. Yes, I don't really feel bad for them. But so the thing is that you don't necessarily exclude just by zeroing in, right?
Right.
You can say, I love strawberry ice cream, and you can repeat that all day long, and at no point are you saying that you hate chocolate ice cream, right? So don't think of it that you're excluding things, but figure out who you really like working with, right? What kind of client have you had good results with? What kind of client makes you laugh? What kind of client gives you the feeling that you are, achieving something together, right? What kind of client is so proud of their results that they tell all their friends? There's no real science to choosing the right audience, but if you've trained anyone, then you probably have some experience of clients that you liked more than others. And then you want to start looking at what are some of their defining characteristics. And this is where you want to try to avoid too much reliance on demographics, like, suburban white male. Like, there's a lot of experiences of suburban white male.
Right.
So
Very
you
general.
want to, right, you want to get more towards the psychographics, which is really the experience that that person is going through, and the reasons that they chose to work with you. So you want to look at somebody who is former athlete, now stuck in a cubicle, has two young children that he wants to play with, but he has back pain because of his lifestyle. And he came to you because you are within a 10-minute drive of his home, or you are on his commute home, and your gym is always clean. That might be the only reason he chose you. Doesn't matter, right? But you want to find out what experience he's living, what made him decide he needed help, and why he came to you, right? And so in that hypothetical example, you don't have to say things like, I only work with X Division I athletes who are now, cubicle workers. You could gear your marketing towards something like, a lot of us have the experience that when we, got out of school, got married, had started a family, our physical conditioning fell by the wayside. And after a few years of not being as active as we once were, we notice little pains and aches crop up. And, we're too busy to spend the time, playing sports and stuff like we used to, right? So you're speaking to that psychographic experience without saying that I only work with this kind of person. And then if you understand that this person chose you primarily because of your location and the cleanliness of the facilities and things like that, don't think that I want people to choose me because of my education. Think, fuck yeah, now I know that the kind of person that I really think I can help is looking for convenience and professionalism and safety.
Mhm.
These are the things that this person values, right? So that. So when you do your marketing, you know that you need to have, nice grammar. You need to have clear words. You need to be using colors that are not like, you don't want to have a banner or a pamphlet that's like all fluorescent cursive script. You want to have, clear lettering, a clean background, maybe some dark, heavy colors that show stability, right? That kind of thing. So psychographics of the clients that you have enjoyed working with and that you can help. There's so many subtle things in here, but you're not looking at that surface level. You're looking to see, what their experience is, why they chose you, and what you can draw from that to help you position yourself well, so that when people give you that 1.5 seconds as they're scrolling past, they don't see just another personal trainer doing some live Zoom classes. They see somebody that ticks off all the subconscious boxes they have in their mind, right?
Right. And also, like, so I like what you said about how to look at like your current clients. Who are you most successful with? Who do you enjoy working with? And something that I've talked to some trainers about, kind of on the flip side of that, is like a lot of us, when we're at the gym, we're kind of stuck in general population client base, because that's who's like kind of coming in, that's who we have access to. And some of us really want to work with somebody a little bit differently, maybe somebody who has a similar background as us, if we've like done a specific sport, like we're like long distance runners or something like that. And that's who we want to really start working with more. And the opportunity to do that in the online realm is so much more powerful than people walking into the gym, because you just don't have access to the same amount of people that you can reach online. So
Yeah.
I try to tell trainers, like, if you want to kind of branch into that, that's like a good, if you have background in this, like, you know, like what this audience needs, like, it's okay that you haven't worked in the gym with those people. Those aren't the clients that you're working with right now. But if you want to, like, you can also go that direction.
Right. And this is a thing where it's 100% about finding and exploiting holes in the marketplace. If you have a certain background and have some degree of interest in working with a certain type of client, what you need to do is just begin immersing yourself in that market. Find the Facebook groups, find the subreddits, find the YouTube channels that are popular for those people. Look at the posts that do well in those like groups and communities. Look at the channels and the videos that have a ton of views and a ton of comments. Read the comments. Go to Amazon and type that topic in and see which books sell a lot and read the comments. See what people liked and didn't like about those books. This is really basic kind of market research, but what's going to happen is at first you're going to see a lot of things that I already know that. But this is the thing where you're reading these things as a consumer instead of as a business person. What you need to do is, instead of looking at the information, you need to look at the sentiment that prospects are expressing with their words. And so you can find the things that they love about products, things that they hate about products. You can find the things that they're frustrated by. You can find out that expectant mothers that are into triathletes. Just sidebar, if I had it all to do again, I would build my business around expectant mothers who are triathletes. Like, just hands down, that would be my market. Easiest, like, I can think of no group in the world easier to sell to.
I couldn't work for you then.
But you need to be looking for the sort of holes and the things that are not being done well. And then you, as a person who has an experience in this, you can start focusing on filling that hole, right? You can start, you start putting videos out on your Instagram or whatever, if that's where those people hang out. Or you can just start, posting in the Reddit, join the Facebook groups, just help people, right? You don't go in with guns blazing, just trying to, tell people that you'll, train them. Just go and answer questions and share tips and things like that, and start putting out the fact that you are doing stuff and communicating with people. What will happen is, this won't be fast, but I'd say within a month of really being active in trying to help as many people as you can find online, what you'll find is that people that have companies or blogs or moderate subreddits or whatever will probably reach out to you and start to trust you. And you'll also find that people that have questions will start to be messaging you privately. So you'll find that you have two opportunities presenting themselves usually. If you are active and providing good advice, you'll start building a group of prospects, whether you're ready to train them or not. And the other thing is, you'll start building some relationships that can help you reach a wider audience. Because just making a new Instagram account and posting a bunch of videos is not a good way to just expect people to find you, right? You need to have somewhere that you can say, hey, I just posted a new tutorial on my YouTube about this thing that I know a lot of people in this community have, had a problem with. And you need to know that the people that run that community will let you post that, right?
Right.
And that's how you start to get in front of more people, right? But a lot of it starts with just finding, getting deep into the market, finding the things that are unmet needs, and starting to do that, right? And that's really exactly how our company started a long time ago. Just we were obsessive about it and did it on a scale at a time when not many people were doing it.
Got it. Okay, so this is great. So you've given a lot of ways to think about like finding your audience, getting in with your audience. I'm going to circle back to some of that in a second. But one thing I want to touch on is modality. So a lot of trainers really position themselves around their modality. I mean, and sometimes that works because, like, for example, GMB trainers, there are not that many of us. And we can do some of that positioning. FRC is growing all the time. There's a lot of trainers who position themselves as FRC certified coach, or like Strong First Kettlebells or RKC. Or so how can you talk a little bit about some strategies that trainers could use to incorporate their modality into their brand? Helping obviously you want to be helping your audience, but can you talk a little bit about how to like slide that into your brand without it being like just the focal point of your brand?
Right. Yeah, that's difficult because I think a lot of modality focus and a lot of brand focus when it's not your own brand is, it's almost masturbatory, right? What you're doing a lot of times, if you really think of the intent behind this stuff, is you probably have maybe a third of your Facebook friends are other people in the fitness industry, right? And they all talk about the seminars they went to and stuff like that. And so you get used to communicating with these people in these terms. And so you want to talk about how, you teach, animal flow, or you do strong first, or, you're certified in this. Oh, well, this guy's a CSCS, right? You want to brand around those things because you know that this small group of people that you are hanging out with, that means something to them. But the thing is these people are not your clients at all. Your clients don't know what the hell FRC is.
Right. And probably don't care that much.
This is
and that's
very,
not
very
FRC
important.
specific. That's not FRC specific.
No,
I'm saying any modality, even like GMB, like most of my clients that I have trained since I've been a GMB lead trainer, they have kind of a faint idea about what GMB is, but they couldn't really tell me about it.
No, they have no idea. Yeah, this is nothing about these other guys. I'm just using other examples because there's probably more people that recognize those that recognize GMB, right?
Yes, true.
So even for me, like, I wouldn't want any of our trainers trying to build their entire business on being a GMB trainer. I think that is, we offer education that makes you better at all the things you do. We're not trying to say that GMB is a huge market. Your clients don't care that you are, let's say, they don't care that you're fit, really. Aside from that, don't get a haircut from a bald barber sort of thing, right? What they care is really two things: the results you can get for them and how you make them feel in the process, right? That's really about it. So some people will, like, for example, if they are trying to find a personal trainer and the way they know to sort through personal trainers is the fact that they have seen 300 people on the turf with the kettlebells behind them doing the video, right? Mm-hmm. Well, how do I choose between these 300 people which trainer I want to work with? And they'll do a little bit of cursory research. They might like look up what the hell FRC is if they see that, like, 5 of these people that they're considering do that. And they'll also say, well, some of these people put letters after their names and some people don't. And some of these people might be better because they're certified, maybe, or maybe they don't care. It really depends on the person. But the thing is that the modality is really just education. If you are in a market where that matters, you probably already know it. For example, if you are an active release specialist, you probably get a lot of inbound queries from people that do Ironman. If you are, I can't think of a whole lot of it. If you, I don't know if Rumble Roller has a certification, but if you are like an SMR specialist, you probably do get inbound from people who saw the Rumble Roller booth at like Spartan Race or something, right? So you might get inbound from people that are looking for a certain thing because of a specific association, but generally people don't really care about the modality. People care about the results and the feelings. So use the modality as something that you can explain how you set yourself apart. The modality is one piece of your differentiation, one piece of your brand. But when you do this, what people get wrong is they try to focus on, I'm certified in this, and we teach these movements, and we do this thing, and this modality is great, and I am one of the 14 trainers of this in the Bay Area, right? Like you're not really connecting with people there. Instead, if you really want to make modality be a marketing asset to you, think from the perspective of your prospects. They don't know what the hell GMB is, right? They don't know any of this stuff. So if it's important to you that you're teaching a certain style, right? If you say, well, I train people with kettlebells, your client does not give a rat's ass unless you give them a good reason to. And so this is the thing. If you have a particular modality that you like teaching, and if you think it matters or should matter to your target audience, well, what you need to be doing is creating some sort of educational content or explanation about why this modality uniquely solves the problems that these people have, right? If you're a GMB trainer and you're trying to use the shtick, I'm a GMB trainer, that's not going to attract anyone. If you're a GMB trainer and you say, here's an example of the way we use the AAA method in GMB to help somebody who didn't really understand what they need to be working on and get them through to where they can actually use it for what they need it for. And here's an example of how it works and why I have invested in training this and use it with all of my clients. It's such a good tool, and it's been really successful for everyone that I've worked with, right? That's the kind of like social media posts, content, videos, whatever that you need to be making if you want to lean on a modality. Why is it useful? Why should the person care? Just branding yourself with another company's logo is not really going to work very well. Look at all of the people wearing polo shirts. Do you think they have any more sex than you? That's not why they're wearing that shirt.
That was just like a conversation stopper there, Randy. Amazing though. Great point. Great point. Okay. So all of this is great information, but like, let's say you like some of the people who are listening to this is going to be like a lot. This is huge.
This is a lot.
This is a lot. And this is why, like, when trainers, ask me like, how should I like sell myself online? Like, this is not a 5-second conversation. It's not a 2-line comment. It's like, no, it's a lot. So I have more questions for you in how to apply all this, but I think we should save that for another conversation. So
let's do that another time.
Yeah. So what I want to do now is for you to give me like 2 or 3 concrete like action steps that a trainer could take right now. Like, because right now they're going to be thinking like, okay, like I got to figure out my audience, and then I got to figure out the way I look, and I got to figure out the way I talk. Like, what are like some, like, let's break it down a little bit smaller and reverse engineer this. Like, what are like 1 to 3 things, like action steps that a trainer could take right now to get like, to really think about this and get started on their brand?
All right. So there's a lot of ways you could go about this. I'm going to assume, let's say that you, not just for right now, but in the future, also want to continue to attract clients on the internet and probably train people through virtual media of some sort, right? Let's say that. Well, you may think, well, everyone's got YouTube channels or Instagram accounts. And that is exactly the problem. So the thing you should be doing right now, if that is you need to download TikTok. You need to download, what's that one where people do the dances and shit? You need to be downloading all of the apps that the youngs use. Yes, and I'm talking about you, 23-year-old trainers. You are too fucking old. You don't know what the kids do. You need to get your head out of your ass and start hanging out with junior high school kids. And I'm not even joking, you need to learn what's coming up, and you need to get native to that platform. Native doesn't mean I scrolled through it and I saw a bunch of people doing asinine videos and I don't get this. That's not what native means. Native means you understand the subculture of the power users of that app. You understand why a particular account is important. If you want to reach gamers, I would say that you should learn how to reach people through Fortnite, but it's probably even too late for that. There's probably someone already doing fitness classes on Fortnite. I would be so surprised if that's not the case, right? But you need, and I don't mean you need to be the first or the only person doing it, but you need to become natively fluent in something that your audience is not just using now, but will be using. If you do want to be focusing on, like my friends, like 50 to 65-year-old women, then yeah, maybe Facebook is the best place for you. Or maybe Pinterest. Or maybe just writing posts to Elephant Journal. I don't know. But you need to become natively fluent in the language and culture of that environment. So that is the thing you should do, is figure out where the people you want to work with are going to be hanging out in the next 1 to 2 years.
Okay. So,
and you need to get so good at that you get it. Then the rest will kind of take care of itself. And yes.
Okay. So let's just slow down for 1 second. Basically what you're saying is that people's ideal client, like the audience that they really want to reach, might not be on Instagram. It might not be on Facebook, or might not be on YouTube, which is like our kind of go-to social media platforms to anybody over the age of 30.
That's because
25.
We all grew up watching Jane Fonda, and we think fitness is either in a room or on a video. That is wrong, though. So of course we gravitate towards video platforms.
So if your audience is not going to be on those platforms, you need to find the platform that they're on. Whatever.
And if your audience is going to be on those platforms, you still need to be looking at other options that are less saturated.
Right, because to stand out on Instagram, to find like people who aren't already your friends or fans is really hard.
It's really hard.
Okay, great. So that's one, find your platform, find where your people hang out and consume social media. What's another thing that they could do?
Another one. Oh man, you guys are going to hate this. In February, I went to a retirement party of an acquaintance, and this person is a martial arts instructor. And so we had a lot of people fly into Okinawa from all over the country, people that have been, training my martial art for, decades together. It's like a big family reunion. It was really cool. And, every country has their own drinking culture. So we were about 4 bars in, looking for bar number 5 on the second night. And we're walking in Naha City, and I learned a very powerful lesson about marketing that night. So when you're looking for they call it a hostess bar. It's basically a bar where attractive young women pour drinks for you, right? So when you're looking for a bar to go hang out in, what happens is there will be representatives of the bars, on different corners, being like, "Oh, come to this place, right? First time I've ever seen this, though, there were 5 of us in our group, 6 of us in our group, and we're walking along, and then so the barkers started coming up to us and trying to get us to go, to talk to us. And what I noticed is that for 6 of us, there were 15 pub barkers. 15, I counted them. 15 gathered around us. And I was thinking, this cannot be a good use of anyone's time. But I was wrong, because what I learned was that these guys individually represented different bars. But they all actually were working together. What happened is they know that they get paid more when we go into a place we like and spend a lot of cash, right? So what they do is they just, join up with any promising looking group of guys, and they try to figure out as quickly as possible where you should go. So all 15 of them come up and they're just like, oh yeah, you absolutely need to go to this place. And then the other guys back off and they move on. What I want you to understand is that you are not necessarily competing with everyone that is training other people, especially online, but even in your local market, even people that train things that look almost exactly like what you do. You're not really competing with them unless you offer the exact same services, have the same personality, and are targeting the exact same audience. So in terms of an actionable thing that you do, what I want you to do is I want you to get in touch with 4 or 5 people that are, kind of similar to you, that you like and respect and that you can help. And I want you to get together and work out the relative strengths and weaknesses of everyone in your group together and make a chart of it. And you're going to build a referral network. And you're going to build a team that is going to help each other prospect on the internet and in person. You're going to work together. You're going to be the Okinawa titty bar conglomerate. That's what you're going to become. And this allows you so much more power to know who you are going to work with, who your friend is going to work with, who that guy that you just met that is really good and has a pretty good social media following is going to send your way, right? Put this down on paper, make a pretty chart, share it around to your friends. Like, if you know people that are, needing this kind of service, here's all the trainers that I trust that do this, right? Make it real easy for your kind of circle to refer people to you and make sure that you're referring people to them. Because at the end of the day, you're helping prospects make a better choice and get better results in a way that is more pleasurable for you and your other trainer friends, right? So you do this not by trying to recreate each other's efforts and produce content on top of each other and shout over each other. You do this by working together so that you can weave your stuff around and not be stepping on each other's toes, right? So that is the second thing that I'd highly, highly recommend doing is first get really native on some sort of way to interact with your target audience. And the second one, work together with other people. Don't think that your best shot is to be the best or the only. That's really hard.
So it's sort of like creating your own work group, like your own little working network group of trainers that you can refer within or cross promote in some way, like that you're kind of like working together with.
Yep. I mean, and if you're like, so easy to do this on Instagram too. Like, you could do the regram and like, at Rose or at Sweet Cheeks is the very best at this. Anytime I want to learn this, this is who I go to, right? And so I'm helping her build her audience, but I'm also showing that I'm somebody who is honest about my limitations and that I'm getting good advice from people too, right? Mm-hmm. And if we all help each other out like this, then it's good. I started like 8 years ago, I started contacting on Reddit, and you could still message people on YouTube then, everyone that was supposed to be GMB's competitors. And we formed formal partnerships with 4 of those, right? It's a thing that helped us grow and still helps us have a really good relationship and a good reputation with people because of that. So that's something that I highly recommend. The thing is your network is much wider than just the number of people that you're personally able to reach.
Right. Okay, great. Those are 2 great, awesome, concrete action steps. And we'll get together and talk another time about how to kind of apply the kind of brand that you've started creating, the audience that you're talking to, the problems that you're solving, and how to sort of infuse that into like your marketing materials, like your website, your social media,
Oh yeah.
all that stuff. We'll do that on the next call because this was way full, and let's give everybody a chance to digest this first, and then we'll go for round 2.
Cool.
But thank you,
Yeah,
Andy. This is very
I
helpful.
apologize. I talk.
No, that's great. It's great. I just want to keep it in like consumable amounts for people, so we don't totally glaze them over.
Sure.
Okay, right. So we'll be back and talk about this more. Thank you so much.
Fight the power.